All right, this is the new to me 1992 Warrior. It's from Washington State where I got it. It was on Camano Island in Washington State. It was owned by an older couple. They both passed away, and then their friend purchased it. Purchased this as part of the estate, and then there was a leak on the roof, so he decided that he was going to start to remove some cabinets and do some work on it. So you can see water got in here. This panel up here is rotten, and then in the front of the bunk as well, there's a soft spot. So it's going to be a full repair, partial repair of this bunk. Not sure, have to dig in and look. But in here, the sofa's been pulled, the flooring's been pulled, all the cabinets have been pulled, but he did a pretty good job in keeping things somewhat organized and not just ripping and tearing. Like sometimes I see people take these apart and it's a nightmare. Putting this back together for somebody might look a little bit daunting, but this is number 10 for me, so I've seen them apart before, so it gives me a better idea of how it's going to go back together. But yeah, he's got boxes, all the parts, got screws and baggies, all those kinds of things help. So when I got it, it didn't run. It's got just a little over 50,000 miles on it. It didn't run, so I brought it here on a tow dolly from Washington State across the border back to Lower Mainland, Vancouver area, and discovered that there was no fuel. So I did some checks for the fuel pump and tried to jump it directly to the fuel pump, and it was just seized up after sitting for so many years of doing nothing. So dropped the tank, changed the fuel pump, put the tank back up, and started it up, and it ran really rough. Changed the plugs, found one plug that actually, when I pulled the spark plug boot off, the top of the plug came with it, so it was cracked. So that was obviously one cylinder that wasn't firing right. And then I think just the fuel injectors just needed to be run, and needed to get a little bit of that old fuel that was still left in the rail through it. And then came to life. The second thing was that he removed the exhaust. The muffler had a hole in it, so he started on that too. He kind of started on a bunch of little things and then didn't really finish. I'll get a video of it running later, but now I put the exhaust back in and it's running good, real good, Toyota good. And here's the underside of the hood. We just removed the hood insulation because it was falling apart and looking ugly, and now we're on to just beautifying the underside here. Got a pressure washer, but pressure washer doesn't always do the trick. This grime has been on here for so many years. This plenum, intake plenum, aluminum, needs some work too. It's just so ugly. So we're gonna hit the whole thing with Super Clean, which is super toxic stuff, but it's great for cleaning and breaking up some of this nasty. Super Clean. Walmart usually has it if you're interested in it. Depending on which way the wind's blowing, you might want to wear a respirator because it's nasty to breathe, but it works really well. So just undid the battery, going to pull the battery, going to soak it down with some Super Clean, and then get a sponge with an abrasive scrubby on the back of it and start to try to dig in by hand to some of these small areas. It's a pain and it's a lot of work, but hopefully this engine bay will come out looking a lot better. Away we go. All right, and here we go afterwards. So you kind of got to take a couple runs at it. You got to get sponges and scrubbies in places where it's so hard to get in. I mean, you got to use your fingertips and go in behind solenoids and circuit boxes and just everywhere to try to get it cleaned up. So there are areas where there's little bits of rust where it'll get paint. Some of these nuts, I'll repaint those. And then the bottom of the battery box, which is a famous spot for getting rust, is rusted out. So that'll get cleaned up and probably just covered with rubberized undercoating real good. It's still solid, so it's not totally rotted out, so it can still support the battery okay. And there's a plastic battery base that goes in there also, so put that in after I put some undercoating on that to hopefully slow down that rust. And then on the plenum here, oh, this is with the pressure washer, this all paint blew off, so that'll get repainted. And then this plenum just masked off the Vsex 3-liter badge there, and then hit it with some muriatic or sulfuric acid. Tried not to hit anything else, but just tried to do the aluminum. And it came up good, clean, not shiny like I'd like, but not bad. This is the kind of shininess I would like, kind of from the aluminum, and it's a little bit more dull. And I'll do this one as well, because this one's kind of a little ugly, so we'll put some acid on that and rinse it off. But that's it. Underneath of the hood, the insulation was taken off, and then got some new insulation on order to put under there, because it really does keep the engine noise down when you're driving, so it's kind of nice. And there we go. So about, you know, an hour invested into that, and it's looking good.